All right, guys, welcome to BTS. Another special guest that we're prepping right now. And of course, as I always do, I forgot to plug in the mic. Plugged in. Now you can hear me a little bit better, I'm sure. Hey. Special guest, sister of Julie Treskaski. So that's awesome. Let's get started. So, another heavy-hitting episode, which is awesome. You got a balance in life, right? You can have the fun beer drinking after holiday ones, paired with sometimes what we have to deal with. So that's where we're at today. And I love it. Especially when you find people that are awesome and willing to talk about the difficult things in life. This is not easy. Hello, hello.
Hello!
All right, let's get some levels here. Cool. The only thing I did forget to tell you is we do have currently, I got a video going. It's just of me. They can hear you, of course, not see you.
Okay.
I put that up on YouTube just as a fun entire episode type of thing. I think that's it. So.
Okay.
Let's do this. Perfect.
Is everybody always really nervous before they start talking about themselves?
I've had nervous, I've had anxious, I've had excited. Yeah. I guess it just kind of depends on the person.
All right. Well, I feel nervous, but I'm going to tell myself it's excitement.
Exactly. It's a good way to go. All right, well, welcome to this episode of Kurzology. Today we have a very special guest. I will give a fair warning. It's another kind of a balance of life, I should say. Things that happen to and with and for and maybe against us sometimes. But my guest today is very special in that she is willing to talk about the hard things in life. Ironically, she is the older sister of my guest from a couple weeks ago, Julie Treskaski. But today we welcome Miss Cindy Rick. Welcome.
Hello. Hi. I'm not that much older.
No, but I mean biologically.
I know. Yes.
We're not doing ages or dates here. So.
I know. My sister's wonderful, and her podcast I listened to. It was great. So you did a great job.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate the listen even. So. We're going to do things a little bit different than usual. Usually we save tales to the end, but I kind of want to do it and kind of help us get into things today, and probably a little easier than just, hey, here's life. But first of all, you're a mom of two, correct?
Correct. I am a mom of two. Evie is, she's 12 now, and my youngest is 10.
Wow. So mom, a teacher, a fitness coach, correct?
Yes, I am. I am a body partner, so that is my part-time job that I love doing.
Nice. You kind of run the gamut of inspiration
Yes.
of mind and body all around.
That's right, and I also started a nonprofit, so I kind of keep myself very busy.
I love it. I love the powerful women. We need them just in the world as we do everybody else. So thank you for your contribution to that.
Oh, thank you.
So let's start out with Tales. Tales, as everybody may or may not know, is tests, adventures, lessons, entertainment, and successes in life. And each guest spells out their own personal. So let's start with tests. What in life has been a big test, or one big test for you?
I I've had several,
Mm-hmm.
and that I could touch upon, but the largest one was melanoma affecting my life and my husband's life. That was the largest test that I had, where he passed away from melanoma about 6-7 years ago, when our girls were 5 and 3.
Wow. Yeah.
So raising them, dealing with and going through cancer treatment, helping a spouse go through, and being their caretaker while they're sick, and then losing him and raising our girls by myself, has definitely been the biggest test.
I can imagine. I can relate partially to the whole being taken care of, and I'm not one that likes to be taken care of. And my wife did not have to do that to me in 2010 when I was just about bled out internally, and she had to do the whole, non-sexy shower of, I need to clean you because you can't move, and all those things. So, again.
Well, when they say, for better for worse, in sickness and in health, when it comes to your spouse being sick and you're taking care of them, was a bonding experience like you have never had.
Absolutely.
It brought us incredibly closer throughout his treatment.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more, about Steve. So was it something that was a big, obviously surprise, but just how from, I guess, the beginning did that kind of all come about? How did the journey start?
Steve was an amazing man, incredibly funny, very warm, very loving, very playful. You knew him for 5 minutes and you thought he was your best friend. He had that sort of magic about him, but he was very, very, very playful. Before we had our kids, maybe about 13 years ago, he had like something, I don't know, like a mole on his neck, and then he had a big mole on his back. And I named them Frank and Freddie. And I said, you really need to get Frank and Freddie looked at. Like, I'm going to start charging rent. Like, we have to take care of this. And he went, and he came back, and he's like, they're not worried about Frank, but they're worried about Freddie. And I'm like, oh, the mole, okay. It was just some big mole on his back. He's always had it. Mm-hmm. So he went in, and he had it removed, and it came back as positive for melanoma. So we knew that was the bad kind of cancer. Mm-hmm. The scary part is that he had to go in for more. They did not get clear margins.
Okay.
So he had to go in for more surgery, where they went deeper and a wider incision right along his lower back. So he had a good 7-inch on his back, that because it was back, and when he would bend, would also split open. And me, being the caretaker, would have to pack it every day and change out the dressing. So trying to keep it lighthearted, because this is a very serious thing we're dealing with, and I would unpack it, and I'm like, oh my God, I see your kidney, and I would pack it back in, I couldn't, but we just tried to make it as light as we could, because it was so heavy and was scary. Mm-hmm. He had also some sentinel lymph nodes removed, and they all came back clear. Everything came back clear. The nodes came back clear. The margins were clear. We really felt like we dodged a bullet. Mm-hmm. That's the experience brought us closer together. Our relationship was very strong. It definitely was a bonding experience on that one. We fast forward, we had our kids. We had Evie and then Harper, and just kind of got rolled up in life, dealing with 2 young children. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling them, I'm like, you got to go get your dermatologist appointment. Like, you have to schedule it. I cannot schedule it for you. You have to go get it checked. You have to get yourself checked. And I think the experience just scared him so much. It might have been like an out of sight, out of mind. Like, if I don't think about it, I'm going to be okay.
Right.
But he never made that appointment to go back to the dermatologist. And that it was one of those hindsights. I don't know if that would have changed the outcome for us. but it's one of those hindsight 2020. But he ended up getting it reemerged. Well, 6 years later, we thought we hit the 5-year mark of being cancer-free. So usually after the 5-year mark, it doesn't ever come back. And unfortunately, it did, and it did with a vengeance. We had a sickness kind of go through the house, had it kind of, and the girls had it, I had it, he had it, but he just was sick. He was coughing. I sent him to the doctor several times, and they just said, it's pneumonia. It's pneumonia. Here's more medicine. It's pneumonia. Try this medicine.
Right.
And he just wasn't getting any better. His lymph nodes were popping out, like, on the side of his neck. And I said, look at that. Like, that doesn't seem normal. And he said, no, the doctor said it will go away when I get better. And I'm like, I don't know. This just isn't adding up. He lost a bunch of weight. He was sleeping all the time. He wasn't a functioning member of our family. And I'm like, I'm going with you. I'm going with you, and I'm going to figure out what's happening, because this isn't right. It's just not normal. Because it was going on for 6 weeks, 8 weeks. He just couldn't kick it.
Okay.
So I went in with him, and it was a different doctor than the one he was usually seeing. And I asked about, look through the chart. He's had melanoma. It's in his records. Suck out whatever's in his neck and get that tested, because this isn't normal. This isn't right. And I remember the doctor saying, yeah, you're right. This isn't right. This isn't normal. And I remember thinking, I know I'm right, and I really don't want to be right. I don't want to be right now. We got the news a few weeks later, and it was melanoma again. So I went into worker bee mode. We found out on a Friday afternoon, and everything was closed on the weekend. But I remember, 9:00 in the morning, I put a pot of coffee on. I had all my records. I am calling all these hospitals. I'm going to call the insurance. I am on it. So that's what we did. We got scans and doctor's appointments, and finding out what it was that we were dealing with.
Right.
I was going in guns a-blazing. So he was just getting really weak every day, so I wasn't going to waste any time on it. So when we got the scans back, it was all up and down his spine. It was on his lungs. That's why he was coughing so much and having so much pressure in his chest, and on his liver as well. So, but his brain was clear, so that was good.
Okay.
So we knew that was a good thing. So we immediately, started finding an oncologist that we trusted. I think we went to several different ones in the Chicagoland area, only looking for the best. Steve found one that he really liked, that he really just connected with, and he's like, okay, this is my guy. So we went all in with the doctor. So he was on, he had a mutation in his cancer, which we're like, great, you're a mutant. This is perfect timing.
Right.
We like this. We want you to be a mutant right now, because now we can go on this specialized medication. So it worked. It shrunk some of the tumors. That was helpful. He was able to breathe easier and function easier and better, but just came with a whole slew of side effects, unfortunately. He started immunotherapy. So that happened every few weeks. We would go in and hang out for a few hours while he got his infusions. And then we waited to see if the immunotherapy took a hold. What would happen is the immunotherapy just kind of didn't take a hold. The medication, as good as it was, caused so many side effects that he needed to be on steroids to control the side effects.
Okay.
But by being on the steroids, it makes the immunotherapy less effective.
Gotcha.
So it was like this delicate dance of trying to make sure he's getting enough of this medication, but not so much where he's miserable and toxic and ends up in the hospital because of side effects.
Right.
You know? So that is kind of one of those things. Then it happened to where we were doing this for a while, and several months, and he started getting headaches, and his vision was blurry, and he's just like, this isn't right. I'm scared. Like, this isn't right. So I'm like, all right. So I pushed for scans again to rescan everything, and it just wasn't the news that we wanted. Right. More spots were popping up. The spots that we wanted to shrink weren't really shrinking, and we also found out that it went to his brain. And once it goes to the brain, it's a different ball game. Mm-hmm. It's a different thing you have to do. So we had a plan. He was going to do biochemotherapy, which was usually the only treatment they had before immunotherapy. But it's very toxic. You're in the hospital for a week. They give you 5 different chemotherapy drugs. Wow. Most patients can't get all of the infusions because they become so toxic that they have to stop because the side effects get so bad. So we knew it was going to be hard. I had a whole schedule set up, like, okay, who is going to be coming in to spend the night with Steve so he's never alone because he couldn't be left by himself. I had a schedule. Like, I was juicing. I brought his juice to the hospital. And I was going with a game plan. Again, we're going in guns a-blazing. Like, there was no other option but for him to get better. Yeah. I was not ever entertaining any other thought. So we went in, and day 1 and day 2 were great. He was not having any side effects. He was joking with the nurses, and he had nurses coming from other floors to talk with him because he had other hospital stays, and they remembered him and how funny he was. So people had visitors,
It sucks that you're back, but thanks for being back.
Yep. And he was just had that magic about him, that he was very playful and made people feel seen and heard and, included. And so people, just really were drawn to him. So we were in the chemotherapy, and then the dominoes started falling where he got too toxic, so they had to stop one of the medications. But they said, don't worry, like, this is good. Like, he got most of it, so this is actually really good. And I'm like, okay. And then he just got worse and worse, where the blood pressure dropped and his heart rate skyrocketed, and it was just, he wasn't responding. He put on 20 pounds of fluid. It just started like, this isn't right again. Something's not right. Mm-hmm. This isn't okay. But we were told, no, he got most of the medication, like, in 24 hours. Once the medication, like, kind of gets out of his system, he's going to be so much better. And then it was like 48 hours, he's going to be so much better. It was like 72 hours, he's going to be better. I'm like, he's not getting better. Something isn't right. Yeah. And it just became another delicate, like, dance again, where his blood pressure dropped and his heart rate elevated, skyrocketed. But the medication to increase the blood pressure also increased his heart rate. The medication to lower the heart rate also lowered his blood pressure. So it was finding, again, that balance between the two. And we had it for a little bit, but I just think it was just so toxic, mm-hmm. and it affected too many of the good things he needed. His heart just could not keep up that pace. Yeah,
your body, there's got to be there's breaking points to all of us, and things that
yes.
we can't control. Your body can only handle so much, and if you're taxing it with something that's quote unquote unnatural,
correct,
that's got to be such a challenge.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. And that was, and that's just, and that's how I had to explain it to our girls when I got home, because he crashed. His heart just couldn't beat any longer. It just was, and they worked on it, and I wouldn't allow them to stop working on him.
Right.
And it was like you see in the movies, the crash cart, the clear, and they all made us move out of the room. I said, I'm not leaving.
Right.
He's gonna give you something. I know, Steve, he's gonna give you something. And I remember the doctor looking at me, and I said, nope, keep doing it. He's gonna give you something. I know it. And then it was a few minutes later, and he just shook his head. He's like, Cindy, we can't. We can't. And they called it, and it was the worst moment of my life. And the only thing I could do was, they all left the room, and I just crawled into bed with him. And I laid next to him in my special spot, like right under his arm, and like just expecting him to breathe at any time, to prove him wrong. Like, just prove him wrong. Babe, just prove him wrong. Prove him wrong. You don't need all their stuff. You can just start breathing. Just start breathing.
Hey, the one time a wife wanted to be wrong.
Yes. Yep. That's right. It's one of those. So that is where my life it just imploded. Everything about my life changed in that moment. Everything.
Yeah.
I changed. Everything that I knew, I was a completely different person from that experience as well.
And looking at it now, and obviously, hindsight is always 20/20. But do you feel like you were stronger then or stronger now because of it?
Stronger now, because the hardest thing is to keep living when you don't want to.
Right.
When everything in your life is not what you expected and not what you wanted it to be, and everything just seems so difficult. Even just getting out of bed seems like climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
So moving forward when you don't want to is very difficult. So I would say that I am definitely stronger now. And that, I think, was what I just told myself I had to do. I had to show up. I had 2 little kids. I could not sit underneath a table eating Twinkies. It was not an option.
Right,
it was not an option. I had to show up even if I was sad. I had to show up if I was scared. I had to show up even if I had no idea what I'm doing, and I still don't have any idea what I'm doing. I had to show up if I was anxious. I had to keep showing up. And that's how I lived it. I lived 5 minutes at a time. I said, I just have to get through 5 minutes.
Right.
And then eventually, okay, I just got to get through the morning. Because I did not know, how am I going to do this? What is this going to, my future, everything that I thought that I had laid out in my head was blank.
Yeah.
It was black. It was, nothing was going, it was all different. So we lived 5 minutes at a time. And then we lived a morning at a time and an afternoon. And then we worked it on a day at a time. And that is just slowly moving forward.
Yeah. And that's the best you can do. I feel like even if something as big as that doesn't happen to somebody, you could still take the time to slow down to appreciate the day, the minute, the hour, the whatever you're doing. Now that the girls are a couple years older, and they understand. I'm assuming they understand. Obviously now more. Do they also seem like they have that strength? Did they understand enough back then, or?
Yeah, well, as soon as Steve was diagnosed, I found a child therapist, a play-based therapist,
Okay.
because I didn't know how to explain cancer to them. I did not know how to explain, like, if dad is sick and what that means and how they're going to interpret it at 5 and 3. I have no idea. So fortunately, we continued with that therapist, and I still see that therapist today. Cool. And she has kind of grown with them as they have gotten older. So they really have been able to process things. And what I have found is the information that I gave them and how I explained it to them at 5 and 3, they seem to process it again. And Evie and Harper both had more questions like 2 years later. I remember it more questions. So I gave them a version of like a 7 and a 5-year-old version of kind of it, giving them a little bit more information, but making sure it was still age appropriate.
Right.
And then again, as at 10, and she is 12, and I'm now giving her more information that I did not that I was omitting anything, but there's some stuff that it was age appropriate. I wanted to make sure that she had. Right. So they have processed it, but also when things do get hard, I tell them, look, you've lived through your hardest day. You've had it. So yes, this is difficult, but if you got through that day, you can totally get through this day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then talking to Julie, too, it was the same thing. I remember her saying that, it was hard to tell her diagnosis to her kids because, in the family, it was cancer means death. And,
yes.
Trying that to find that
their
balance.
Closest, yeah, that was their close experience, was their Uncle Steve. That's all they kind of knew. So it was a scary.
Yeah. Yeah. But out of all of that, too, came Clear Ribbon. Which yes. We did touch base with Julie a little bit, her episode, and gave the website, which we will do in the show notes for this as well. How did that get started? Explain a little bit more about that.
It all started in the doctor's office on a Post-it. We were there for one of our first visits with this new doctor because he was first diagnosed. And I remember this lady coming up to me. It was like this younger couple, because there's all these elderly people, but then there's some of these younger people that really they look out of place, because when you think of cancer, you don't think of somebody in your 30s,
right?
Yeah. And she came up to me and she gave me a Post-it, and it was her number, and she's like, "Call me when you need me." And it was a stranger, and I'm like, "Okay, I will do that." And it ended up being a few weeks later. I called her. I called this stranger that I briefly met in the doctor's office, and her and I started talking. Her husband, Josh, also had melanoma. We actually ended up meeting Josh our first day of immunotherapy, where you're sitting there for hours getting these different infusions, and then have to stay there to make sure you don't have reactions. Like, you're there for a while, and you're there in the room with all these other people. And he probably looked at us and saw our shell-shocked expressions and was so amazing. Like, this is the best chair. You can see the TV the best. Like, don't sit over there. It's right underneath the vent. You're going to get cold. That's the nice nurse. If you need an extra blanket, ask her. It was this, he couldn't fix it. He was taking a terrible situation and was just trying to make it just a slightly bit easier. And it was so helpful, because we had no idea what it was that we're walking into. So just to have someone there be like, it's okay, kind of give us a lay of the land sort of thing, was incredibly helpful.
Like, I literally understand.
Yeah. So it was incredible. And it was just this kindness that he didn't have to do, that he offered, that made that really scary day a little less scary. Fast forward a few months, it was after Steve passed. I was at Josh and Gina's house, and Josh was in hospice. And he said, "I want to meet Steve's kids." So I remember driving to Josh and Gina's house, and I said, "Okay, we're going to meet Josh, and he's going to be laying in bed, and he is sick, but we're not going to ask him how he's feeling, and we're not going to ask, like, say, I hope you get better, because Josh is not. He's not going to get better. He will pass away. Like, he will be with Dad. And they asked, like, well, what can we ask him? Like, we'll ask him what his favorite food is. Ask him, like, what his, favorite music is. Because he likes music and he likes to cook. Like, we can ask him things. We want to get to know him, but we're not going to tell him, like, hey, feel better, because he's probably not. And they were, again, 5 and 3. No, maybe they were 6 and 4 at this time. Just barely. Harper just turned 4.
Okay.
And I remember we walked in, and they had the big hospice bed set up in the living room. And Harper just walked right up to that bed, crawled right into it, and just laid on Josh and gave him the biggest hug. And just said, can you tell my daddy I said hi when you see him? And that was the beginning of my friendship with Gina. Because I remember telling Josh, I'm not going to let Gina be by herself. You're seeing the beginnings of a friendship that will last forever. Gina is not going to be alone. Her 2 kids, like your kids, are not going to be left alone. I've got her. And that was the beginning of our friendship. And we would call each other afterwards. After he passed, I was there, okay, this is what you're going to need to know about the funeral. This is what you're going to need to know about, like, giving her just trying to make a scary situation a little less scary. And that kind of became the premise of Clear Ribbon. Jean and I became friends with 2 widowers, and we're talking, and we got together because we got the kids together. The kids want to be with people who are like them and who understand them. We want to be with people who understand us. Right. We can talk about them being sick, and we can talk about the weird things that happened after they died, and we can talk about it without feeling awkward, like we're making somebody feel uncomfortable. Right. It was a very safe place to do that. So we decided, look, we have to be able to help people with this. I always said there's no playbook for this. I wish I don't know how to do this. There was no playbook on how to grieve, how to raise a family by myself, how to do any of this. And even though we can't give people a playbook, we can at least kind of be what Josh did for us. Like, give us some information, walk us through some things. We can't make it better. We can't take away the pain, but we can make things slightly easier. And we can offer supports that they didn't even know they needed yet. We know where they're going to need them. So we can kind of be there, or when they're ready for the supports, we can be there for them as well.
Right. And to me, personally, I think that's so super important, because when I lost my dad in 2019, that was the first, I was one of very few, I could count maybe on a couple fingers of friends or people I knew that lost parents. And I thought I was never going to get over it. And I think what you just said is so important. There is no playbook. You're never going to not miss the person. And it's not easy. It's just easier or able to get through a day. And just saying you're going to be there or making yourself available is so important, because everybody's timing is different. It could be years before you think you're yourself again, or it could be a couple months and you're like, hey, I've accepted it, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, yes. And that is what I really enjoy and love about Clear Ribbon, is we are individualized depending on what the family needs. We have families that we have helped that need extra support, and then we have families that don't. We are able to be there. It seems to be around like a 6-month mark where friends start to go back to their normal lives, and friends start dropping off, and people you thought were going to be there aren't there. We end up always making sure we're there and we're a presence to know that they aren't ever going through any of this alone.
And it is something that obviously we'll put the website and everything. You guys are on Facebook and everything too, and social media, or just okay?
Yep. Yes, we are.
And it's they find you. They say, hey, this is the deal, and does it seem... Go ahead.
On our website, we do have an application to where if you know of a family or if you are the family that do need support, we are specifically helping right now people who have lost a spouse to cancer, who have school-aged children. That is the people that we're really kind of honing in on and helping at this moment, because that was all of us.
Right.
We lost our spouse, and we had these young kids, and we had this dealing with the cancer aftermath and everything that comes with, and then dealing with the grief and the children, and that is what we all shared and had in common.
Right.
So that was where Clear Ribbon started this mission, to be able to help those families. Now, do I see us growing and helping other families? Absolutely. That is our 5-year, 10-year goals. And we do help other families that have maybe school-aged children that haven't dealt with cancer. We still obviously step in and help, because people need help.
Yes.
People need support. We have stepped in with people who've just lost a spouse and maybe they didn't have children. Still step in, because those people still need the connections. They need the community. They're still going to need that assistance.
Oh, absolutely. And the world needs more people like you. Because, that's struggles you don't even know. And right. I think even the simple fact of just knowing that something like Clear Ribbon and people like you are out there is a huge thing. Just that littlest bit of comfort that somebody could be like, hey, I'm going through something very similar, but I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to deal with anything right now. But just to know that I'm not the only one that's ever gone through this or going through it right now. That's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of support for families that are going through cancer, who are in the midst of it, but there isn't much out there for if the person succumbs to cancer. There isn't much out there for the widow or the widower for after, because it is uncomfortable. You don't want to think that your person is ever not going to make it, so it is, it's a hard truth, but it is a truth. And that doesn't happen for everybody, but it is a truth for some. And there is something, I remember a woman telling me, a client, I was dropping things off, and she said, it was just so nice to be able to look at you, and I don't even have to say anything, and you just, Yeah. She's like, I could tell in the hug that you gave me, you just know, I don't even have to say a word. I'm like, yeah, that's what we can help with. We have community outings with the families that we help. We try to get them together to create a bigger support system, to create a bigger network so they can start leaning and relying on each other. And one of the family members said, he's like, spending an afternoon with you guys was way better than 6 months of therapy that I had. This was just so healing for me.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to be able to help and bring to these families.
And you're right. There is, it's not, I'm not judging this, but you do notice whenever you go through anything rough in your life, lots of people come to you as it starts.
Yes.
A lot of people, most people hang through it all. A smaller group kind of hangs at the end, and then it fades, and your pain may not be gone in a year or 2 years, but something like Clear Ribbon is there for, essentially the long haul, and you never know when that is. But that's awesome. That's awesome.
It absolutely is, and we plan on being able to grow with these families. And then if the family starts needing less and less supports, we do that with them. If they start needing more in a certain area, we do that for them.
Very good. Awesome. We're definitely going to have the information on anybody listening to this that needs that help, may know someone that needs that help, or starting it.
Yes.
We'll have all that in the notes. Yeah.
And we have helped people all over the country. We've been able to ship. We start with care coolers. We took our experiences and we took our experiences, what were helpful for us, and now we're going to be able to help those people. So for me, I did not want to answer the door. I didn't want to, people were dropping off food, which was so kind, or gifts. So one of my friends put out a cooler, and they would drop things in the cooler, and that was such a blessing because people could drop off gifts or drop off things. They could place it in a cooler. It's just not out on the stoop. But I didn't have to answer the door and answer the question of, how are you doing? Well, I'm terrible,
Right.
Or I finally get a nap and the doorbell rings. So it was just a nice place to where it wasn't as invasive to the families who are in the midst of it and grieving. We provide books. That was a huge thing on helping me navigate and facilitate the conversations to have about death and dying and grief with the girls. I needed age-appropriate books.
Right.
And now that they're older, I have looked and researched more age-appropriate
They're
books.
still your kids, and they're still going through it.
They're still going to go through it, and they keep processing it at different age levels. They process it in different ways. So they're going to be processing this for the rest of their lives. So trying to find the books that help with that. And then just offering that community.
Yeah.
I know there are financial supports, like guidance that we offer, because there's a bunch of paperwork that I did not know that death brings. So much paperwork. So we're able to step in and help with that and be able to figure out how I needed to go from a double income to a single income. And that whole realm and aspect of thing that I wasn't thinking about at the time, and I didn't want to think about at the time because I just wanted to grieve and help my kids.
Right.
So we're able to at least offer some guidance in that to take a little bit off of the grieving widower's plate.
Yeah, it's just those things that you know you're supposed to eat. You know you have kids to take care of, or a house, or you can't miss bills because you don't want to lose things. But all the little things of, like you said, books, or you didn't have dish soap, or you forgot to do the laundry. Like, it's just the things that, to have a support system to kind of help or remind or to check on is so detrimental. It's so important.
Yes. And we have our resources as well on the website of how to help someone who's grieving. That was, I remember, a paralyzing question people would ask, like, how can I help? And I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even know how you can help because I was so overwhelmed and paralyzed by it all. So we do offer suggestions like grief groceries. Go grocery shopping for them, or meals, gift cards to Uber Eats or restaurants so you don't have to cook. Hiring them a cleaning person, a cleaning lady to come in and vacuum and do laundry and those things, because those can be so overwhelming when you're in the middle of dealing with grief.
Yeah.
So a lot of people want to help and they don't know how. So we do get a lot of those questions as well. So there is like a page for that and resources where people can figure out supportive ways.
Yeah, to go over. So, and that I think is important too, for those listening that, aren't going through anything. You may not know if you are ever going to go through something like that in your life. However, just to have that in your head to know, like, oh, I didn't even think about that. If I ever hear a friend going through it, make sure that their dog is taken care of and that has food, like, all that sort of stuff.
Yes. If they have pets come over and walk their dogs, my neighbors did that. I relied heavily on my friends and family. And that was something that one of my neighbors did. She's like, can I walk your dog? I'm like, yes, you can. You can come get him anytime. And she did that. That was incredibly helpful. And she didn't ask, like, what can I do? She just said, I'm going to walk your dog. And I said, yes, you are. that would be great. I had someone just tell me, like, we got you a cleaning lady. Like, we're coming once a week to clean your house on a Tuesday. That is, yes, I want that. I need that. Yes, please.
Yeah.
So it's instead of asking the grieving person, which can be very overwhelming, if you just do those things, it is incredibly helpful.
Well, I will be one of the many champions that endorses the Traskaski women as just the category of wow. So, thank you for what you're doing. Not only just Clear Ribbon, not only for, fitness and being a teacher and a mom, but all the things together, because these are things that people do need to hear. And know that there are things out there. You are.
Yes.
In this life that is, super balanced with good and not so pleasant. But with good, since, I know your time is valuable, for anything going from that test that led you into life now, is there an adventure or one that you can just highlight in life that you love?
Adventures is that's my life, is my biggest adventure. I learned that it is fleeting and it is precious, and I have to make it impactful. I have to make it meaningful. I have to make it memorable. And that is what I want to do. I want to take the things that were hard and challenging for me and be able to look back and lend a hand and pay it forward, and to take my hard and turn it into something positive. Mm-hmm. That is going to be a positive legacy, that Steve did not die in vain, that this and how he died and why he died and how it was left with us in the aftermath of it doesn't go to waste, that it is turned into something beautiful and positive and meaningful and impactful.
Yeah, I always hate asking this after because they pair up very nicely, but is there a specific lesson from that? Like if you were to kind of maybe even summarize in a sentence or two, a lesson that you've taken out so far, whether it's through the adventure and the test with Steve or anything else in life that you'd summarize?
That you just have to keep showing up, even if it's hard. Mm-hmm. Rely and lend, and I did not like to accept help from people. That was something that's very difficult for me to do.
Same.
But I know I would not be able to be where I'm at if it was not for my friends and family coming in and supporting and helping. I know I would not be where I am right now if it wasn't for them. Mm-hmm. So allowing people in, allowing people to help, and letting go of it as if they think it's a weakness. They want to be there to help and support. Our friends and family will do anything for you, so why not let them in and be able to do that? That was something. I also still look for the silver linings in everything. Yeah. I remember I was going through every day, I would say something, 3 things I was thankful for every night before I go to bed. And I remember the day that Steve died, and I'm like, how am I ever going to come up with something to be thankful for today? Mm-hmm. Like, my world shattered. How? What? And I just remembered, I'm so thankful for my family that was there. Like, I'm so thankful. My friends and my family that were there to literally pick me up off the floor when I needed it. I knew I was never going to be alone. So finding those silver linings. I hate that Steve died. I hate it. And I hate that for my girls. Mm-hmm. But I also recognize the relationship that I have with them because Steve died and because it's just been the 3 of us is incredibly precious. And it's closer than I'm sure other people have with their kids. So I recognized how lucky I am to have this really close connection with both my girls.
Well, like I said, your family is unique and awesome in so many. Mm-hmm. As long as I've since 1997, and being in high school and knowing you guys, definitely keep that going because we need more of that in the world to balance out the things and to balance your lessons and things. What is let's flip it a little. I'm going to admit right now. You are the first guest, as the people are going to see on this video, to make me cry. So I hit it well from the microphone, but I can't hide it from the camera, and I'm not going to edit it out because that's what happened. But to balance,
that's okay though. Like I'm a totally completely different person that I am now than I was before Steve died, and now I cry all of the time, and I'm just like, it's showing emotion, it's showing that you're caring and human, and it's always welcomed. Yeah. And I will never apologize for crying.
Because... No, I used to, but I had a dear friend. I will say who she is. She is the wife of my college roommate, Nick Robertson, Jenny Robertson. Hey, she was the first person after my dad passed that said, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just not in the mood, or sorry, I seem angry today, or I didn't talk on the phone very long, or whatever it was. And she, texted me back and said, you
Yeah.
never apologize to anybody, especially
Correct.
me. And I was like, oh,
Correct.
okay. But to balance the fun, what entertains you? What is something on the flip side of all this, heaviness and everything, whether it's something that's always has or that you found through this process, what do you find entertaining or fun?
Oh, fun. I can always do the spending time with my family. That's always a fun one.
Mm-hmm.
My fun, it sounds silly. It's my part-time job. Is my fun.
There's nothing
I
wrong
am
with
a
that.
I'm a body partner, and it's one of those opportunities for me to be able to pay it forward and help people. And I help people with mindset and nutrition and fitness and all things that I struggled with, that I needed help on, that I'm able to, again, do like a pay it forward thing where I'm able to help them. And that is fun. I get to go on trips and excursions and hang out with people, and we work out together, and it's really fun. These people are just not coworkers, they're my friends, and I built this business with friends, and that is a lot of fun.
Nice. I like that, especially the trip part.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the
Yes,
escape has to
yes,
be physical. It doesn't always have to be. It can be just mental, but I think it's necessary. Necessary.
yes.
So to sum up tails, the last is S. And by the time I get to this point in the interview, if I've done a good job myself, in my opinion, I can always answer this for the person, but never do because it's not my time. But I feel like they've always explained the S, which is success. So, what is your definition of success, and have you achieved it?
I think the meaning of success can look different for everybody. I don't think it's this unattainable goal, like in the future, that I'm going to work towards. It's what I'm doing now. I'm happy now. I'm successful now. It's not this. I don't want to not be happy or not be successful until I reach a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I am what I'm doing now. How I am able to take my hard and turn it into something that is helpful and impactful and meaningful. That to me is successful. I didn't let it define me.
Mm-hmm.
I let it build me. And I am using that to keep moving forward.
I like that and may steal that at some point in time. Let it build you and not let it define you. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many good things. I know we're coming up on your time here, and I do want to keep that. We're gonna have to. Julie was the first guest I had on had to do two parts, so I had her on twice.
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna be the second one because
all right.
I know we talked about a couple other things that we wanted to kind of bring up, but I feel like they're episodes in and of themselves because of the gravity of it. So we will have to have you back.
I would love nothing more.
Well, I thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me be able to share the story and being able to help in whatever way I can, and be able to just talk about Steve, because that will never get old for me.
Absolutely. And we, like, I say with everybody, you have with topics that are maybe not as fun to go through, you never know who you're going to touch. And even if it is just one person that listens to this podcast or is, whatever, it's worth it. It's worth the time.
Absolutely.
So,
and if somebody knows a family who lost a spouse due to cancer, who has school-aged children, please reach out to us. We have helped families all over the United States. And we are going to try to start working with people in different towns and cities, and like have a hub, so have these different like clear open hubs where people are able to have that sense of community, even though they're in a different state than we are. So to be able to do that. So however we can help families, we'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely be promoting that when this episode releases here in probably about 2 weeks. Okay. And so everybody keep your eyes open for that. Cindy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chris.
For everything that you
Thank
do.
You. I appreciate that. Thank you for starting this and getting people's stories out there. I think that's important for people to hear.
Absolutely. Everybody out there, whether you're watching or listening, please continue to take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we will catch you on the next episode of Kurzology. Well, thank you. I know that endings are usually awkward.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like being on TV, which I'm used to, but most guests aren't. So thank you. I appreciate so much.
Thank you.
And we will have to be in touch, maybe after the holidays, because I know things are going to start picking up for schools and families and stuff. And we'll definitely get into maybe the eating stuff and anything else.
Yep.
But thank you. Please say hello to your family.
Absolutely. I will. Thank you for doing this. Again, it was hearing people's stories and listening and being able to, it's really great what you're doing. So.
Well, thank you. I do.
Keep up the good work.
I'm earning my stars.
That's right.
Well, thank you. And we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Perfect. Tell Danielle hello.
Will do. Bye-bye.
All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Yep.
Oh.